Imagine a scenario where the impossible becomes the bridge between the divine and the human, where the voice of God flows not only through prophets, but even through creatures despised by man. In the heart of the desert, Balaam finds himself between two titanic forces, the people of God, advancing under the promise of the Holy Land, and a king seeking to curse them, manipulating destiny with his own hands. Known for his ability to foresee the future, Balaam walks amidst doubts and temptations, unaware that true power does not lie in his tongue but in the presence of God, who sees all. He mounts his donkey, believing he controls his fate while the heavens watch. Yet God, who governs creation's invisible laws, has a plan beyond human logic, revealing that divine wisdom manifests even through the most unlikely voices. As Balaam advances, his donkey senses dangers invisible to him. An angel of the Lord, sword drawn, blocks the path. The donkey veers, retreats, insisting on protecting its master with silent loyalty. Balaam, enraged, strikes the animal, unable to comprehend the wisdom in its instinct. Then the supernatural occurs. The Lord opens the donkey's mouth, producing a voice that shatters expectations, echoing like thunder and a whisper of mercy. The donkey asks, "What have I done to you that you strike me thus?" A simple being, seemingly without reason, becomes the mouthpiece of divine truth, proving that God's power manifests where it is least expected, reminding all that creation is under his dominion, and any creature can instantly become an instrument of heaven. The people of God watch from afar, unaware that this ordinary moment will become an eternal lesson. Every blow Balaam delivers, every turn the donkey makes, every word transcending the natural becomes a message. No one, however powerful, stands above God's will. This is not merely about a talking animal, but about recognizing divine sovereignty over all creation. Human authority is limited, while the Lord, in his infinite wisdom, uses the most unexpected paths to guide, correct, and teach. Even those deemed incapable of understanding the world, like a donkey, can carry the voice that corrects a prophet, disarms a king, and preserves a people. This event, recorded in Scripture, transcends time. It challenges us to perceive signs, to listen beyond the obvious, and to understand that the divine manifests unexpectedly. The talking donkey is not an isolated miracle, but a warning. God's presence is everywhere, and he chooses whomever he wills as messenger. It calls us to open spiritual ears, acknowledging that God's ways exceed human logic, and that true wisdom lies in humbly following his voice, even when it emerges from a seemingly insignificant being. In a world obsessed with power, control, and reason, the lesson of the donkey shows that faith grows through obedience, listening and honoring the divine plan, even when it defies all expectations. The heavens do not remain silent before injustice or the blindness of the human heart. As Balaam travels, confident in his vision, the donkey stands firm, veering from danger and refusing commands leading to destruction. Each step becomes a silent challenge. The angel of the Lord, sword raised, blocks the way, not to punish Balaam, but to correct his distorted sight. In that moment, the impossible becomes real. The Lord opens the prophet's eyes to a truth he cannot see, allowing the donkey to become the instrument of this revelation. A simple, humble creature despised by men conveys a message that corrects Balaam's physical and spiritual path. The lesson is clear. God's authority depends not on who speaks, but on who obeys his will. The donkey questions nothing. It protects, warns, and communicates. Each word carries the Creator's authority, forcing Balaam for the first time to truly listen. The shock is immediate. Balaam meets the donkey's gaze and realizes it is no ordinary animal but a channel of divine will. "Why do you strike me?" the donkey asks, and the question reverberates in the prophet's soul. Every blow, every gesture of impatience exposes his blindness to God's justice. The people, distant, watch, perhaps unaware. But the heavens bear witness. What seems absurd to human eyes is a lesson of eternity. The scene transcends time. It teaches that God uses the improbable to reveal the inevitable. Humility proves stronger than pride. And recognizing God's voice, even from the least expected place, is the key to true wisdom. Balaam's path, once secure, is now filled with uncertainty, not from human error, but from divine intervention exposing the limits of arrogance. God's correction instructs all creation. Every stone, tree, and creature reflects his will. The donkey exemplifies how silent obedience and perception surpass human understanding. It reminds that earthly power is fleeting, but divine authority manifests in the humblest forms. The donkey's question strikes like a blade. How often does man let pride guide him, ignoring signs beyond his perception? Each reader is invited to reflect on their paths, messages overlooked, and how faith allows one to see beyond the obvious, hear beyond expectation, and perceive the divine touch in all creation. Balaam confronts reality. His vision is insufficient. He must obey or face the consequences of arrogance. The narrative intensifies, suspense rises, and the heavens watch every choice. The donkey, vessel of revelation, remains steadfast, patient, committed to conveying God's message. It is a reminder that the impossible can become a messenger of truth, that all creation may serve divine justice, and no human stands above God's will. God speaks where He wills, when He wills, and through whom He wills, and only those attentive and humble grasp the profound meaning of His words. As the story unfolds, the desert becomes the stage of a spiritual drama beyond human imagination. Balaam, still blinded by ambition and the desire to please the king, feels the pressure of an invisible force preventing him from advancing. The donkey, patient and constant, stands as a silent guardian, witness to divine justice in action. Each step of the prophet is a dance between human will and God's sovereignty. Each movement of the animal reminds that earthly control is an illusion. The story transcends man and beast, becoming an eternal warning. Arrogance meets limits, and God's authority cannot be undermined by wealth, influence, or pride. Tension is palpable, almost cinematic. The reader feels the desert's heat, the weight of the unseen, and the urgency of the message that must be grasped before it is too late. Heaven watches vigilantly, and the angel of the Lord, sword raised, demonstrates that all creation is subordinate to him. Balaam, astonished by the donkey's voice, is finally forced to acknowledge he controls nothing without God's permission. Each word from the animal mirrors his own failure. Why do you strike me now, when I try to save you? In its simplicity, the donkey reflects the Creator's supreme power, showing that even the humble can become messengers of heaven when obedient. It is a lesson in humility, perception, and the deadly risk of spiritual blindness. Obedience is not mere choice. It is a path to avoid ruin, while pride above God's will leads inevitably to defeat. As the confrontation intensifies, divine presence manifests not only in the donkey but across the landscape. The wind lifting desert sand, the sun burning with near supernatural intensity, and the silence heavier than any human sound. Every detail reminds that the visible world intertwines with the invisible, and that God communicates in ways that defy logic. Balaam begins to realize his limited sight is insufficient to understand the Lord's designs, and that any attempt to manipulate destiny through human reasoning is doomed. The donkey, patient and faithful, becomes a symbol of vigilance and integrity, showing human power is nothing against divine authority. Tension reaches its peak as Balaam, confronted by the donkey and the angel, must choose, persist in arrogance or submit to divine guidance. The narrative transcends history and becomes universal, teaching that pride never prevails before God, and that even the most unlikely means can convey His will. The donkey, an improbable messenger, proves nothing in creation is insignificant, and that every being can reveal truth if aligned with God's purpose. This episode leaves an eternal legacy. God manifests where He wills, through whom He wills, and those who refuse to hear His voice face inevitable consequences. The desert, now a silent witness to divine justice, observes Balaam at his decisive moment. The prophet, who once walked confident in his own wisdom and strength, finally feels the weight of authority beyond human understanding. Each word of the donkey reverberates like thunder in his heart, reminding him that all creation serves the Lord's purposes. The angel stands firm, sword raised, a symbol of unerring law and divine protection for those who walk righteously. In that instant, Balaam realizes that his life, actions, and even thoughts are under the watch of the one who sees all. The lesson becomes clear. Pride blinds, arrogance deceives, and vanity leads to destruction, while obedience, even recognized late, opens paths that seemed impossible. The donkey's voice, improbable and powerful, becomes an epiphany. Balaam not only hears but sees. The Lord chooses unlikely instruments to convey His deepest truths. A humble, unassuming animal becomes the vessel of divine correction, proving that greatness lies not in status, power, or fame, but in fidelity and obedience to God's will. Every strike against the animal mirrors human blindness, and every word echoes as a sentence of eternal learning. in its humility and patience. The donkey teaches more about justice, vigilance, and the Creator's care than any human could. It is a reminder that no one is above God, and that all creation participates in manifesting His glory. Balaam, now aware of his error, must choose between manipulation and surrender to divine truth. He understands he can advance no further without acknowledging the Lord's supremacy, and that any attempt to use his prophetic gift for personal gain is futile against the force guiding the universe. The donkey, faithful to the last moment, stands as guardian and messenger, reminding that heaven's power manifests in the humble. The story reveals that miracles are not limited to grand displays. Sometimes the greatest power is simple, silent, and deeply transformative. The overlooked animal becomes a symbol of spiritual vigilance and proof that obedience surpasses strength and humility exceeds ambition. Finally, the story of Balaam and his donkey resonates through centuries, not only as history but as an eternal message for those seeking to understand the divine. God speaks where He wills, when He wills, and through whom He wills, and the miracle of the speaking donkey reminds us that divine wisdom can appear in unexpected ways. Human pride is fleeting, and true greatness is in recognizing and obeying the Creator's will. All creation serves a higher purpose, and every being, no matter how simple, can become a messenger of eternal truth. This story challenges us to open our eyes, listen attentively, and walk humbly, remembering that God's voice can echo through the most unlikely places, and those who hear and obey will never be deceived by pride or falsehood.